I'd like to call this June 9th, 2022 Board of Education meeting to order. George, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Cobain?
Here.
Mr. Miko?
Here.
Ms. Stochek?
Here.
Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
We are all present. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on our agenda tonight is executive session to consider the employment and/or compensation of a public employee. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mrs. Cobain. Any discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes?
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
And Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Motion carries. We will enter into executive session at 6:10, and we will resume when executive session is done. Going to return to our public session at, shouldn't have put my phone away, 7:08. Next on our agenda is district goals. Our district goals remain the same: student achievement, academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement, and all our decisions are measured against those three goals. Public comment, I do not see a slip. Do I have any public comment? Hearing none. Mr. Anagnostou, Treasurer's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Micco, and good evening, everyone. I have two discussion items tonight, and the first one is the food service RFP recommendation. I just wanted to give an update to the board, as I did going into it, that this was our sixth year with the food service management company. Per law, every 5 years, we have to go out for RFP. Every contract is a one-year contract with 4 annual renewals. So we would have had to go out last school year, but due to COVID, the USDA did a 1-year, well, really 2-year waivers, because if in 2020 districts had, if they were expiring, they had an opportunity for a waiver as well. But ours was last year, we got a waiver to keep with the current vendor for 1 more year, and this year we had to go out. So just to kind of go over the process of what we did, who responded, what the committee looked like, and then the recommendation from the committee. If there's consensus from the board, then at the next board meeting, I'll bring the contract for board consideration, as our current contract ends at June 30th. So we had, what I'll go over, we had the process: round 1 evaluation, round 2 evaluation, next steps and questions at the end. So the process, we prepared, ODE has a template that we've used to seek proposals. We seek 2 proposals, one for the National School Lunch Program and another one for the Seamless Summer Option. And the difference between the two is currently we're under the Seamless Summer Option, and the Seamless Summer Option came about during COVID, which is the current program where every student eats free at every district. At the time we went out for bid, we didn't know which option was going to go out or would be in place next year, but ODE, well, not ODE, but the federal government has said the Seamless Summer Option is ending at the end of the school year, and that they're going back to the National School Lunch Program, which was the current program that was back in place. So although we submitted 2 bids based on where we stand now, and there hasn't been any news that the Seamless Summer Option is coming back, we proceeded with the National School Lunch Program. We saw proposals between March 17th through April 19th. We had a public opening, which was held on April 19th at 11 a.m., where we opened all the bids. We also held a mandatory pre-bid meeting for interested vendors on April 4th, which was a few weeks after the proposal was open, and then also two weeks before the proposal was due, to answer any clarifying questions, and we visited 3 schools. We visited the high school, the middle school, and Kinsner Elementary. We received proposals from the following vendors, which were Airmark, Chartwell's, Metz Culinary, Southwest Food Service Excellence, and Tailored Dining Services. In addition to the vendors listed above, we had 3 additional vendors that requested an RFP but did not submit a proposal, and they did not attend the pre-bid meeting either. So these 5 vendors attended the pre-bid meeting, and they also submitted a bid for contract. Round 1 evaluation was done by the committee. We prepared a rubric that was, it needed to be published in the RFP and points awarded to it, which is also on the next slide. But the committee was made up of 2 board members, Mrs. Bissell and Mrs. Hausum, central leadership team, and Dr. Ryba, myself, Mrs. Pelko, operations manager, Mr. Breckner, and then elementary principal Mike Griffin, and assistant high school principal Eric Castle, and assistant treasurer Nick Mancini. So we evaluated based on the first round, based on cost, which was 23 points, the on-site director, which was 20 points, experience, 17 points, menu portion sizes, 15 points, promotion of the service, 10 points, innovation, 10 points, and then involvement of students, 5 points. So 100 points total. how we did the evaluations, I sent the rubrics out, and each committee member evaluated independently, submitted the bids, then we aggregated them as a whole based on total points to see where they came out, and then we met, at which I shared the results, and we had internal discussion and decided what we should do for round 2. Based on the total points on the bids, Chartwell stood out among the rest and were recommended by the committee to move on to round 2 for an interview. Since it was only one vendor that we brought back for round 2, we asked them more pointed questions. We asked them to answer questions on regarding the bid, but also how they involve the program of the next 5 years. And their focus is to continue to increase participation. Since we've brought on Chartwell's participation has increased. They're going to continue to focus on increasing participation, and they're also going to, by doing that, implement programs of Discovery Kitchen, which is letting kids get an opportunity to put meals together, create meals. Also for elementary schools, it's a mood boost program on how certain foods affect your mood. So I think blueberries was a big one they talked about blueberries, what is it, positive or make you happy, give you like a positive boost. So focus around those and have cards on the food you eat and how they impact your mood, and also integrate that with the menus for those times. Student choice, student feedback, and then they're also going to try with cooking, more scratch and batch cooking, and then introduce new food concepts. Revolution Noodle, it's kind of like a noodle bar. Those are becoming popular. And then mac and cheeseology, making different macs and cheese. And then develop an annual schedule of fun events on a quarterly basis where they can kind of plan out these different programs, and then continue to seek community engagement and feedback from the community. So overall, the committee recommended to continue with Chartwell's. So that's the update that I have if there's any questions.
Michelle and Laura, do you have any comments based on being part of the selection committee?
I think the one thing that came out of this meeting was we talked about having a committee, and you mentioned that recently, Cameron, to make sure there's a group of people who are consistently evaluating Chartwells and basically holding them to the standard they say they're providing. COVID did kind of throw a wrench into things, obviously, but what they've outlined is amazing, and we want to see that, come to fruition here in our district. So that committee will be formed to make sure we keep tabs on that. I think that's the major thing that my takeaway is, this is great when we see it.
I think we said that would be like a wellness committee. And I'm the same. This is the first time going through this process, so I was very impressed by everyone who submitted a proposal. And I am excited to see, what Chartwell does, and hopefully they get to follow through on everything that they said they can do.
I think the one other thing I would add, as you're saying, as you're impressed, I didn't realize it, and I certainly know the public doesn't realize it. Each proposal is 400 pages long. So sorting through 400 pages times 5 is no small task for the board members and the people that volunteer their time to do this. And it's no small feat for the food service companies. They have a plan, they know what they're doing. So I think we can move confidently forward with the one that we have selected.
Yeah, and I would add to that, it's for the companies, they put a lot of resources into their proposal, and there were aggressive proposals and there were good proposals, and at the end of the day, Chartwell stood out again amongst the others, and the valuations by the committee members were done independently on purpose, so each one it wasn't influenced by anyone else, and the results were consistent among how they kind of came in.
Was there a theme on why Chartwell's rose above?
One of the areas was the food service director, where Chartwell's came out ahead on that, obviously because we have a food service director, we know who they have, while the other ones, they're going to have to hire someone, so you kind of don't know where what you get, and based on
Did
that,
they all commit to hiring one? Or
They all
did
committed to
some of
hire.
them- Okay.
they kind of gave an example of,
One or two of them had people picked out, but the rest
Yeah.
of them, it was just the general.
right,
Yeah.
We'll hire someone if we.
We're
get the
thinking
contract.
about this person possibly.
Yeah.
they're an assistant director somewhere else. And then from our own experience, really who you get as a director, regardless of any of these companies, who you get is what's going to make or break the program.
The other question I have, the scratch food, everybody promises to do that. How are we gonna make sure it happens?
Well, I think to Michelle's point, Michelle made the recommendation is, can we keep this committee and task for a committee that consistently evaluates and holds Chartwell's accountable? So this is what you said you're going to do in the RFP. Are you doing it? Where you're at on it? What do you need from us to?
Is there language, is there potential language in the contract to say if, these are the metrics or these are the benchmarks? Because it's really easy to say, oh yeah, we're gonna work on it.
Right.
And then, year two, we're still ordering prepackaged food from whoever we're
There's
ordering
no,
it from.
there's no metric or language within it. It's a concept they want to move forward with. But this year, and we'll have to see how next year goes, there was supply chain battles as well that we've dealt with it, that they'll have to mitigate through that process as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, George, though, but we have to sign this contract every year, right? So
Correct.
basically, we have that built in. Like, if we have this committee and we are actually looking at it quarterly, and it comes to January, February, and they still haven't cooked a single thing in the elementary kitchens, well, I think we have good reason to say you're not holding up your end of the deal. That's all I'm, personally willing to wait. My kid's been in the elementary 6 years, and we haven't seen anything scratched, so my timeline is not long.
No, and I agree. I mean, when Chartwell's, and I understand the pandemic and all the other things, but it's very easy to say, we're going to do these things, and 4 years later, we're still waiting for that program to start. So I think having a committee keeping their feet to the fire is a good idea. I have no other questions. You have my support.
Thank you. So next steps, I already sent it to ODE for approval. They wanted me to send it to them first to get their blessing. So this discussion, and then it'll be on the board meeting, June 30th, for approval, and then we'll send it back to ODE.
We won't miss any deadlines.
No.
Thanks, George.
Yep. So now, my next topic, switching gears from food service to athletics. I'm going to ask Mr. Ziegler to join me as well. And we're going to kind of share this presentation. All right, so it's the athletic department online ticketing. To kind of give you a background, and this is for all the sporting events. We're currently use Ticket Spicket to buy tickets for our events. Initial term is 3 years. Next school year, we're entering into year 3 of 3. We also had a sponsorship agreement with them. If we sold X number of tickets, that we would receive $3,000 from them, $1,000 per year, which we've received the entire amount. And then we may terminate this agreement upon 30 days with the written notice to Ticket Spicket. So at the time we went into it, the first 2 years we started off good with minor issues, but our biggest hang-up right now is the credit card readers. We haven't been able to get credit card readers for the box office over the past 2 years. And then last year, their server has gone down twice. So in preparing this presentation, we weren't really sure what's going to happen with the credit card readers, as it's been a promise for the last 2 years. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. We just had a conversation with them the other day. They're promising to have credit card readers in the fall. So it's kind of we hope they'll have them and hope there's no any issues. So the response is they've been beta testing a new product in the spring to deploy in the fall, and then for their server issues, said the server went down twice. Once was during a football game, which is our busiest events. Then another one was during a soccer game, and it's to have more representatives available during peak times. Other alternatives that Denny and I have been looking at, more so Denny has been looking at, and I'll kind of turn it over to Denny to talk about the alternative that
Sure.
he's been.
So with hometown ticketing, they are endorsed by the OHSAA. They are the official ticket sponsor of the OHSAA. So all of the state tournaments are run through hometown ticketing. Right now, every team in our conference currently uses hometown ticketing. We're the only school that doesn't. So if we jump on board with them, there is a sponsorship through them for the conference. And what that is, I don't really know because they don't like to share that, but we were told that there's a dollar amount that goes back per school to the conference. It would be part of our conference's goal to rework that with them, especially with our 2 new schools coming in next year. That is going to take us from 6 schools to 8 schools. I think that's something that we could work out with them. With the alternative here, they are based in Ohio. They actually have an office, I think, in Lorraine or even somewhere over that way. So they have 24/7 support. When you have an event going on and there's an issue with their server, you call them. They have someone standing by until your event is done. So they're never going to leave you hanging. It goes back to the issue that we had this past fall where a server went down. I called. They're out in, I think it's North Carolina. I don't hear back until that following day. That's not the case with this. And then also they do have established credit card readers and a box office. So if there's someone that comes up that wants to purchase, they can do it with, a credit card or online. The nice thing about them, they sync up with our athletic website. So if a person goes on our website and they go to our schedule, they can purchase tickets right from that link next to the game instead of going to a totally different link through our athletic website. So it makes it seamless, it just makes it easier for for our community, for our parents, for our students, to use that. And then obviously it works with our OHSAA tournaments. So a lot of our family members are already familiar with it. It's not going to be new, and it's actually going to make things easier for them, I think.
And to that point as well, we've used hometown ticketing, we're forced to use hometown ticketing when we're a district host site for playoffs. So we're forced to use hometown ticketing for playoff tickets through the OHSA. So we know it works.
Mhm.
We've had experience with it. It works, and with a lot, and it starts even with, if we're not even host sites for other events, even for our own teams when they make the playoffs,
Correct.
we
Yeah.
have to use it.
As
So
far
any
as-
questions on-
As far as the server going down, has hometown ticketing had situations where their server was down?
So I spoke with Brunswick's athletic department. They said there was an issue in the fall. They made severe updates. They've not had any issues since, and they said actually things are a lot better than they've ever been. So I don't know what they did on their end, but they recognized that there was some major issues going on, that they upgraded all of their software, servers, scanners, and they've had no issues since, but I don't know how many.
My point is if the server's down, whether I'm talking to someone today while it's down or tomorrow, the server's down.
Right.
It doesn't make me, it doesn't, it might make you feel better to talk to someone, but you still have people
Sure.
who can't buy tickets.
Mhm.
So that, I'm more concerned about that than necessarily the customer support.
The fee structure, when comparing these two vendors side by side, look at the fee structure. Ticket Spicket, their online fee is 5% of the ticket value plus $75 per ticket, and it's the same at the gate. Hometown Ticketing, their online price is $1 per ticket plus 30 cents per order plus 2.9% of the total value for the credit card fee. At the gate, it's just 5% of the ticket value. So when breaking them down, when buying online, Ticket Spicket is slightly cheaper online versus hometown ticketing being significantly cheaper at the gate. And kind of breaking that down, this might be a little hard to see from where you're sitting, but the difference between the two, if you buy it online, for one ticket, it's 44 cents. For hometown ticketing is a little bit more expensive by 44 cents. But at the gate, for that same ticket, if you buy it at the gate through hometown ticketing, it's 75 cents less. And the fee is not paid by the district, just like the schools, every school, the fee is passed on to the consumer. So it's a choice whether you want to buy them online or at the gate via credit card, or if you pay cash at the gate, there's no fee associated with it. So the fee is essentially a convenience fee.
This might be a silly question. If the server goes down, is that across the board, including online, if they were to go on the website in any way, shape, or form? Or like, so say it goes down at the game, could someone go onto their phone and purchase online that way, or no?
So when it happened with Ticket Spicket, nothing would work.
Okay.
So like the website wouldn't work to scan them in,
Right.
wouldn't work. And they had zero box office set up, so we couldn't even do, something that way. I guess I don't know how that all works with, the hometown ticketing server.
Right.
My gut would tell me, as in the fall, when it happened with Brunswick, when it went down, no schools had it, so every school went down. So, it wasn't just a, unique characteristic
Yeah.
to one school.
And I think the quick fix at that point is getting the roll of tickets in
Paper tickets,
and
yeah.
going back to cash, which I think you guys did, but
Mhm.
any pre-orders, it was hard to scan them in, and
Yeah.
I think it took time for them to get them in.
I have two questions. Do we know what percentage of our fans purchase online versus purchase in person?
I would say with the way that Ticket Spicket was, we had a lot more people buying in person.
Okay.
But it's always nice to have that cash option. But I can say over the course of last year, just looking at the ticket report, we sold about 11,000 tickets online.
Okay.
And when we switched to this originally, back when we first went with electronic tickets, it was more of having a credit card option at the gate. There were a lot of times where, and during those, and this was pre-COVID, where I would help out at the box office, and we had people show up with a family, they had little kids, and they didn't have cash with them. They go to pay, and we said cash only, and they said, well, I don't have any cash on me, what do I do? I said, well, you can go to Giant Eagle across the street, or the bank's on the road, and then they would have to like pack up their kids, leave, and so it was more finding an alternative for that solution with the credit cards, but in doing so, it also gives you the ability to buy tickets in advance. And a lot of times what happens for football games starts at 7, everyone shows up at 7, and we have these long lines getting in, and by the time people are moved through the line, you're missing the first quarter of the game, or potentially well into the second quarter. So it gives us that nice option where fans can buy tickets in advance, so you don't have to worry about getting them there. You can just go straight to the gates and walk in.
The other question I had was, it says that we're looking at alternatives. Was there another alternative we're looking at, or we just have it down to these two options?
There's really no alternative besides these two. Hometown ticketing's kind of saturated the market, and Ticket Spicket is trying to, they are a lot more popular down south and on the East Coast, whereas, this company, they are located in Ohio. They have a lot of the Midwest. They're even into, the college ranks. There's no other, alternative that I've known or have seen out there.
We've looked at a couple more years ago. I don't know if they're still around.
Yeah, the ones years ago that we looked at, some of them were more tailored towards like plays and musicals, not so much the athletic realm. And a lot of the other ones, their fees were a lot higher, and in some cases, they too didn't have the in-person box office that we wanted. So, Ticket Spicket had one, but we had to manually type in credit cards, and, that would just elongate the whole process with our community.
Thank you.
Do we know if hometown ticketing services other states in the nation as well? Like
They do.
They do?
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
And which is bigger between hometown and Ticket Spicket?
I'd say right now, just from what I know, hometown's bigger. So Ticket Spigot is endorsed by the National High School Federation, which oversees all of the state associations, but not all the state associations use them. A lot of them are going back to, the hometown ticketing just because of the in-person credit card readers that they've had.
Right.
Any questions?
Well, I don't like the idea of the fee increasing. On the other hand, I like the idea of having credit card readers at the gate.
Mhm.
And I like the idea that it's cheaper if we switch at the gate. So I guess the only question I have is if I'm at the gate, can I buy it online on my phone?
Yes, you can.
So if the line gets real long and I want to spend an extra 84 cents, I can do it.
Correct.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so the next steps are we issue a 30-day notice to Ticket Spigot, and then at the next meeting, have you guys bring to the board the hometown ticketing contract, and then utilize them after the 30-day notice expires.
So the only thing I would suggest we need to dig down is you have that caveat about the return.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that it's not, that we didn't misread it or whatever, and that it's only the $1,000. Because otherwise, we would let it ride for, if it's something onerous, we'd let it ride for a year
Right.
and then have this conversation all over again.
Correct.
So, but other than that, I think you have consensus to move over. to move
And I will add,
forward.
it's the only additional cost that we might incur would be the purchase the credit card readers. We have all of the scanners and everything that's needed to scan tickets in, to do everything else. The only additional cost might be, the credit card readers, and I don't know what the official cost is.
I think they said
Would that be the
$300.
case with Ticket Spigot if we stayed to
We'd have to purchase those. too,
purchase
yeah.
those as well? So
Yeah,
it's a cost either
So
way.
either way, we have to incur the cost.
correct, correct.
But we know that Hometown Tickets has credit card readers
Yeah.
to purchase.
They said
And-
as of now, they do, but if we wait closer to the season, if they bring more high schools on, it could be a supply and demand issue. But it's a local manufacturer, so
Right.
if we move forward sooner than later.
Yeah.
Let's
And the
move
other
forward
thing,
sooner.
yeah, the thing that I like about it is they have established credit card readers, whereas the Ticket Spigot, we're unsure. And even though they have them, are we going to incur additional issues come fall, especially during a football season with those? So that's what George and I, kind of walk through too.
And I like the fact that you can buy away games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be nice.
All right, well, thanks, Danny.
Yep, thanks.
That concludes my report.
Next on our agenda is superintendent's report. Dr. Ryba.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. George, on the controller, can you just hit the source search? Thank you. Should work, yeah. So we have two discussion items for you tonight. The first is an elementary extracurricular update. As you remember, last year we spent or 2 years ago now, spent a lot of time talking about elementary extracurriculars. The board graciously agreed to add 3 additional elementary extracurriculars. So Michelle had a great idea to say, hey, how about we get an update? And so what we did is we featured one building. We featured Whitney Elementary School. A lot of our elementary extracurriculars are very similar across the buildings. There may be a few nuances. So with the help of Mr. Benson back there and his video magic, I have a little video to share with you.
I'm Mrs. Ambrosiak, and I'm one of the student council advisors here at Whitney Elementary School. And I have been participating in student council since I was in the 5th grade myself, and it had a huge impact on my life. Believe it or not, I was a very shy, quiet child. Nobody believes that today. And my student council advisors are the ones that really brought me out of my shell. So thinking back to all the fun things we did, we even went on trips once I was in middle school to other states and things like that. In high school, I became part of the Model UN, and it all stemmed from those original student council experiences. So I wanted to be an advisor so I can be that person for our Whitney students and help to empower them, give them a voice, make them a student leader, and show them that they can have an impact on their greater community.
I like student council because everyone gets to group together and solve problems and have fun. I think some of the fun things that student council has done is like the cool fundraisers, like for example the skate party.
I like student council because it helps kids solve problems that they have, and it helps every kid have a voice.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Trimper. I am a co-student council advisor with Mrs. Ambrosiak, and we have had a great year in student council. We were able to have an assembly in the fall that was funded by student council that supported our PBIS initiative, where we had dancers come in that gave a great message to our students and also did a lot of great dancing that they thoroughly enjoyed. We had a great skate party for the first time that had so many of our parents and students coming out. Over 250 people arrived for that skate party. We partnered with PTA to get some playground equipment and help them to fund the basketball hoop that we finally got on our playground. And it's just really great to be part of this organization, the student council, to watch the kids grow so much. They come in so quietly at the beginning of the year, and by the end of the year, they are coming up with solutions, suggestions. It's just a great group of kids. And I say that every year, that this is such a great group, I'm really going to miss them. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what our next group will be able to accomplish.
Hi, I am Mrs. Gonzi. I am the choir director here at Whitney Elementary School. We have a wonderful choir program here at Whitney. I invite the kids to show up at 8:15 in the morning, and we practice every Tuesday. We enjoy singing all types of music, but this year we had a theme of rock and roll that went with our school theme of rock and roll. We just had so much fun. I enjoy having the kids in the morning and getting to see them just relax and enjoy singing. We prepare songs for 2 concerts here at Whitney, one in the winter and one in the spring, and we always perform at the All City Choral Festival, which is fun to be on the stage for the kids. Hopefully, we've been invited to sing at some outside of school events, but it's just been kind of crazy this year, so hopefully in the future we'll be able to do those things. The thing I'm most proud about is they are learning how to not only work as a team and get along with others, but we actually attained 2 and sometimes 3-part harmony in our choir rehearsals.
I like choir because I just have a passion for singing. I feel like when I sing, I let go of some of my emotions and I just get caught in the moment of singing.
I really like to be in choir because it's a way for me to express my passion of singing. If anyone was wondering if they should be in choir, I would say that's a very fun experience. You don't have to be very good at singing. You just have to enjoy singing and just have fun with it.
Hi, my name is Tim Doyle. I teach 3rd grade at Whitney Elementary School, and I work with Whitney's running club. This is a great opportunity for students K through 5 at our school to be involved in an activity. I enjoy applying my athletic and coaching experience to the movements and drills that we do at our running club. The running club is a great way to increase agility and body awareness, and it is a highlight of the students' day here at Whitney.
I like being in running club because it helps people socialize with other kids. I was really bad at running, and now I'm good because I have rhythm and I can push myself through.
Hi, my name is Terry Hoffman, and at Whitney Elementary School this year, I taught Tech Club. And basically what I had the kids do, depending upon what grade level they came to me from, 3rd graders worked on just kind of sharpening up their Google Slide skills as far as they created a little PowerPoint presentation about themselves. And then I taught them how to link different photos. I taught them how to save photos. I taught them how to change font, bold, all that good stuff. So this way, in 4th grade, when they start using these skills, they'll have kind of step up on everyone else, so they'll be able to be really creative. 4th grade did a little bit of the same, but it was a little bit more, it was a little longer, a little more in depth in what they were actually developing. And then in 5th grade, what I decided to do was take one of my favorite things when I was a kid was the Choose Your Own Adventure books. And what I had the kids do is create their own stories that branched out into different endings, and the kids did this all through Google Slides. So I think the kids all had a really good time with it. The last class at each Tech Club, what they did is they gave them an opportunity to share with each other and actually take part into each other's stories. and we kind of rotated around the gym, and that way everyone had a chance to kind of learn and see what else other people did.
I decided to sign up for Tech Club because I'm into technology and I wanted to learn more. I created a project, like a choose your own adventure book, and it was based off a mystery of a $10 million book going missing, and you got to choose which path you wanted to take for the detective to try to find the book.
Mr. Hoffman taught us how to like link images to different slides, and then when we click the slide or the image, it would take us to the slide to give us like what happened next. My favorite part about it was that we got to use our creativity to make something fun.
So I love Zach's involvement. I think Zach's in a lot of the clubs.
I was going to say, I think he's in like.
But,
He's taking full advantage.
you know, like I said, there's a few differences between the buildings, but most of our buildings have a choir or an art club. Most of them have the Kids on the Run or a running club, and then the student council and a few others that are similar. But again, I think this has been a great addition. We did have some bumps in the road starting up this year in terms of getting staff back into the mix of having extracurriculars, getting communication out there in a timely fashion. So we've set clear expectations with our building principals. I think staffing is going better in terms of filling those this year. All of them will be up and running by the end of September at the latest. All of them will be communicated via the networks internally, but through principal newsletters. To get those going. But it was a great start, and we're looking forward to next school year. The other thing that we did that probably not a lot of people will notice, but what we said is when we have similar clubs across the buildings, we wanted there to be consistent expectations. So every building has a student council. All 5 principals got together and said, okay, what is student council going to be for all elementary schools? What is the running club going to be, tech club going to be? You know, projects may be different, but this is what grade levels are going to be involved. This is how frequently we're going to meet. So I thought it was a good first start, and you know, we learned some stuff along the way that we can enhance for next year.
We track participation?
I haven't tracked that. I'm sure they have some sort of roster of who's involved.
I'd be interested to see. You know, I don't know if it needs to be a hard goal or a metric, but if every student is engaging in at least one extracurricular, you know, is that our goal? Or something similar to that, but before you set the goals, it'd be nice to know what your benchmarks are.
Yeah, one of the things, we do track that at the secondary level. So we've tracked that for years, and it usually is about 55 to 60% of our students are involved in something, whether it's music, sports, or an after-school club. But we have the capability to do that, and we can.
I'd be curious to see what the numbers were
Yeah, it'd be
for the
nice to
first
see.
year, and then
Yeah.
see what that indicates for next year.
Because we have a cap on them, don't we?
Some of them we do, yes.
And I was
think
wondering, are
most
we
of them
turning,
do.
Yeah.
I was wondering, are we filling up, are we turning students away?
Yeah, I can check on that. I know, like, part of the learning process was this year that some of them, they didn't have a cap, and then it became very, for example, if I have 100 kids show up to run and I'm one person, that becomes difficult, right? Originally, the tech clubs were set up of, hey, we're just going to do K to 5, and then they said, oh, K to 2 has a whole different skill set versus 3 to 5. So those were things that they learned. But yes, you're correct. There's, besides choir, I think there's, which that has a grade level restriction. But there are like 25 or 30 is the cap, yeah.
I think that, along with the other data, I think that would be good data
Yeah.
to have is, yes, this is the number and they maxed out, or this is the number and they could have accepted more.
Right. Okay, yeah, I could do that.
One of the other things too is I remember reading your document, at SRAR, what they did with the art club, because there was so much interest, was they broke it into like 6-week sessions.
Yeah.
So just moving forward,
Yeah.
that's something that, if we have capacity issues, we could break running club into fall and spring or whatever to accommodate more students.
That's a good idea.
I think too, at that level, aren't the student council people picked by the teachers?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't know, you know, I knew there were kids that wanted to be on it and weren't. So, you know, that might be a thing that, you know, I felt like it was kind of like, you know, almost like if somebody really wants to be involved and they're not, how do you explain to them that they can't do that? You know, when it's so, at their level. I understand as they get older, but we're just talking like kinder to fifth grade. I was kind of surprised that like they just get picked by teachers. I mean, it's just kind of like, it doesn't leave a good feel for a kid who doesn't get picked. That's
So,
all I'm saying.
That's correct. It's hard if, you know, there's typically more kids that want to take on a leadership role. So what the schools have tried to do is to say, okay, from each class, we're going to have 2 students that are going to represent in 4th or 5th grade. I can't remember exactly.
Usually both.
Yeah. So, but what they try to do is allow for involvement in the activities or the different things that are going on in more kids, but it's the leadership of the problem solving, the decision making. But yeah, that it is a challenge for, you know, it's kids that want to get it, that there's a limited number for that one.
Right.
Sharon, that was one of the things we talked about originally. I remember this was my concern. I hate the idea that our very first involvement with government is saying you don't belong here.
Yeah.
And that is still a concern for me, and that if
But
you.
it's just the fact, you know, even as they get older, you know, they'll get voted out of things, or like, let's say their grades or there's like levels, but to just say, okay, my teacher didn't pick me is just not a good criteria. It isn't a good way to start if we're trying to be inclusive. It's the total opposite. So, you know, you just don't want to do that at that young of an age. They have to learn.
Sure.
Everybody isn't going to make everything. I just feel like that's probably not the age I would want to start it, or maybe the way they do it.
Right.
Maybe put kids in a hat then and pick them out or something, so it's not so much, my teacher didn't pick me, why didn't my teacher pick me? You know, it's just kind of, and I'm sure the teachers have a hard time too, because, you know, there could be 10 kids and they can only pick 2. So maybe they could think about reorganizing that or somehow doing it that won't be so, so effective on the kid, you know, that affects them. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
The stakes are high. We had a teacher who was an introvert and became an extrovert.
That's right.
Right.
Because of student council.
All right.
Any other questions for Cameron?
All right, the next thing I wanted to talk about was substitute teacher rate. So you have a handout in front of you, and I'll put it on the screen so everybody could see. So what we wanted to talk about tonight is, obviously, we've talked throughout the year, you know, staffing, we're still doing okay. We're not seeing the impact, especially with our teachers or administrators of a shortage. Support staff positions have been a little challenging this year, especially the short hour positions, monitors, some of our custodial staff. But in terms of our substitute teachers, we started to see some issues, and I'll let Jenny kind of talk about the issues that we were seeing about being able to fill beyond COVID-related issues. And so Jenny did a kind of a study of local comparables. So I'm going to have her kind of talk about the first half of the page, what she was noticing in the substitute pool, and what she learned through looking at some of our local districts.
Thank you. So just kind of looking at this, I first have to say how proud I am of our teachers for helping out this year with the sub shortage. You know, what I'm really proud of is that we were still able to conduct our letters training as we wanted to do it. We were still able to pull teachers to do, you know, common assessments at the elementary level out of their classroom, to do a lot of the work that we wanted to get done this year. But it was challenging. Many days were, you know, we had many teachers covering classes and, you know, pulling people from every which way. I know our RTI intervention specialists helped out a ton in covering classes. So it wasn't easy, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is trying to piecemeal it together. And it's not the best. We don't want to pull somebody out of an assignment that they have to go cover a class, but we never want to leave an elementary classroom uncovered. So that's always our priority as we start out. So, you know, as I talk about this, you know, talk a lot about the elementary because that's our focus. Obviously, those kids can't not, you know, be unsupervised. At the secondary level, it's a little easier because we can do class period coverages at the middle and high school to get through. But, the stack of timesheets I'm signing for teachers covering classes and their capacity to sustain that is going to be really difficult, as they're doing that every day. So a couple things that, as Cameron said, that we were seeing that were happening and kind of led us to do this comparables earlier this year is that, obviously we all know that there are other jobs out there that you can go and make, they've raised their rates, some of the fast food places that you can go to and you can make, quite a bit more per hour than you can with our current rate of $90 as a substitute. So that was a piece of it. We found ourselves losing some of our really good subs that have subbed for us for years, and they went to other districts because they were either making more money daily or we were all kind of fighting for those long-term positions as we were trying to fill them as more people were going for surgeries and, we still have people having babies. And so, that was another piece that we were losing people that normally would always pick Strongsville just because, we do a very nice job here and our kids are great and they like subbing here, but, sometimes money talks. I talked about the coverage of paying teachers and, you have to think of it from their perspective. They're trying their best. They have kids out we still had COVID going on, especially toward the end of this year. We had a little spike there. And they want to help. They're not going to say no. They know it's the best thing for the kids, but if they're covering classes 3 times a week, they are losing time in planning and what they need to be doing for their classes. And then, just overall, there is a teacher shortage. I mean, there is a shortage of subs. It's not uncommon as I go to my meetings with other HR colleagues, we're all saying the same thing and it's difficult to find people. So we want to be able to attract not only substitutes, but good people that are going to stick with us, get to know our district, get to know our kids, and be with us that we can count on. The other piece that I'm anticipating this year, and this sometimes comes when you hire younger staff, I think on the books I have already 20 FMLA leaves that we're anticipating and many teachers that are going to start the year not being here. And so, it's probably out of all the years, one of the most I know about so far that we're going to have quite a few. So, like you have approved before, the permanent subs have helped, that's helped a lot. But again, as they're permanently subbing for us and then a long-term sub position comes up and we have to put them in there. So that's really saved us to know we have those people, but it's still, it's still challenging. So what we did, as you can see here, is we looked at comparable school districts around us and we looked at where, we don't have a company that we contract for subs, we do it ourselves. And that still seems to work. Our fill rates are pretty similar to those that use a company, and we're just not paying that price. However, you can see that as we looked around, and some of these have come down a little bit, but for this year, this is what they were paying, and you can see that our $90 is pretty low. And what I mean by some other districts that aren't on here, we're really charging even more or paying even more than this, and so those have come down a little bit. But this is really our comparables. And so when we look at paying $90 a day and then you divide that out by hour, the hours that they work and what they're doing, it's really not much. So the other piece is the loyalty time. We looked at that. When you sub a certain amount, it jumps up. For us, what we do is if you sub in the same consecutive assignment for 10 days or more, so a teacher's out sick or they're on maternity leave, we don't know if they're going to be out the full 60 days yet. They get $90 until they hit, the 10 days, and then it goes up to $110. But again, that's, as you look at the comparables, it's kind of right in the middle. And so we don't do anything for retired teachers or retired teacher time. We've looked into that a little bit, and there's just some other issues with that when you look at attracting we have a lot of retired teachers that do come back to us, anyway, and we appreciate them, but there's just some other issues that sometimes complicate paying them more than other subs. So, that being said, we're just looking to be fairly competitive and make sure that we can attract the people that we need. Normally, we'll start the year around, maybe about 60 subs, and then it climbs, slowly to around 100. I think this year we were fortunate to have like 43 that were working. So, again, it's just so important if we want to continue with the professional development that we need to do, and then not overtax our current teachers too much. And again, with the maternity leaves that I'm anticipating, it's just smart, I think, to take a look at this. So I'll turn it over to you, Cameron.
So as we take a look, okay, we know that our rate is low. We know that we have high-quality subs that are going to other districts. We know that we're calculating it on a 7.5-hour school day, take away lunch, 7 hours, 90 divided by 7 is less than people can make in many other hourly jobs. So about 8-9 years ago, we made an adjustment to our sub rate for all of our classified positions. So custodians, bus drivers, monitors, secretaries. We said, hey, to keep pace with inflation and costs and the wage of the time, we made it a percentage of the base salary. So we took every position and said, okay, if you're a custodian, here's the base wage, and I don't remember the exact percentage, but let's say it was 40% of the base. You have never seen in the last 8 years an approval for OPSI sub rates, because every time that wage goes up by 1.5% or 2% based on the raises for our OPSI staff, that also increases. So we don't ever have to worry about it because we set it at a good level and it just keeps pace with the time. When you have a flat rate, obviously that doesn't happen, and if you're not paying attention, not that Jenny wasn't paying attention, but the market outpaces you sometimes. So what we said is we like that idea of having it a percentage of the base. And that way, if you take a look at like our teacher's contract, this last contract every year was a 2% increase. So that basically equates to, hey, about $2 more is going to be added to a sub rate, and you don't have to come to you a few years later and say, hey, we need to make a larger adjustment. So what we're recommending for our sub rate is that, and where did we come up with this? We wanted to get to that $15 an hour rate. We thought that would kind of get us in the realm of what other hourly jobs are at. So we just did the math and kind of backfilled that and said, $15 an hour times 7 hours gives you $105. What is that as a percentage of the base for next year? That's 43% of the base. So what I'm recommending is that we go to the metric that our teacher sub rate will be 43% of the base. And then this year it will be 105, next year it will be 107.10, and then it will go on from there. And so that would be the daily sub rate. One of the things we also have to do, I think that takes care of how are we going to get in the even playing field with other districts. And we think $105 is fair for the $15 an hour rate we talked about. I think then how do we incentivize people to stick with us and not job shop to other districts? That's where we put in the daily sub rate. Instead of saying you have to be in a position for 10 consecutive days to get a bump, what we're saying is, hey, we just want you to stick with us. We don't care what job you're subbing for, but on day 31, your rate is going to increase by $10. So, as you take a look at the metric, so it wouldn't have to be an annual approval, it would be whatever the daily sub rate is, the loyalty rate is $10 more. So in my example, next 23-24 would be $117.10. So again, I just put the hourly rate there as a point of reference. The last part in terms of our sub pay is our permanent sub rate. Those are going to be utilized with ESSER funds. This year, we were paying them $110 a day. In taking $110 a day, and we were paying daily subs $90. So we felt that, we weren't going to keep with that $20. We felt like $120 for that position was fair. Backfilling that equates to 49% of the base. So as long as we have permanent subs, we're recommending that be 49% of the base. That would increase with each increase that happens to the base salary. So that's what we're recommending. We feel that puts us in a strong position to attract and retain our subs, attract and retain permanent subs, and have people have loyalty to our district throughout the year. What this would be, after I get done talking, any feedback or questions, but if we have conceptual agreement, this would be on the June 30th agenda. And the June 30th agenda, you would be approving that, the rates as we talked about. Daily would be 43% of the BA0 base. The loyalty would be $10 more than the daily rate. Permanent would be 49% of the base. Once you approve that, it becomes permanent, and it'll continue to adjust as the base adjusts. So clarifying questions or suggestions, or?
A couple questions. Why not put the daily sub rate 31 plus days on a percentage as well? Isn't the $10 going to eventually get outpaced as well?
The way that we put it is just that it won't get outpaced because it's always going to revert back to that daily sub rate.
But is $10 going to be enough long-term? Like, is $10 to say?
Right now, $10 is substantial.
Will
In
it
10
be?
years, $10 isn't substantial.
We could do that as, whatever that's going to be, 45% of the base or 40, yeah.
I'm just curious about what difference, does it make a difference and how much? And I feel like if we're actually going to, want this to hold, that's
Yeah.
going to have to be there as well.
Yeah. I mean, we could start with 115 and find out what that percentage is and just change that to a percentage.
Okay. Also, why 31 days? Why that number?
Because Jenny told me that's what she
Well,
wanted.
yeah, I see your eyes glancing over there.
Jenny, why did Cameron recommend?
Yeah. Well, I think we went back and forth with this one and just kind of looking at, some of the comparables as well and what they recommended. You have to remember that if they are here in the same position for more than 60 days, they go to BA0 at that point, because that's what that triggers. So that's kind of, I guess, half of that,
So it's
half
half
of that
plus one.
time, yeah. And so, I think in this piece too, it doesn't have to be consecutive. So what I like about it is if, I'm here for 31, I'm subbing in different places, we can really get a good flavor of that person. And they continue to stay with us, and then, they could start, if they got a long-term position, they could start, instead of making, well, if it would be 105, if you go for 105, instead of, starting there again, they can start at the higher rate. So I mean, it's just, looking at the comparables and kind of where we are and what could, give us a good idea of who they are, and, again, as we look to, we do a good training, we have them shadow a lot of times before they sub and stuff, but want to make sure we still get the right people, even though we'll still hopefully have that flexibility of subs coming in. We want to make sure we have the right people in place.
Thank you.
Brecksville or North Royalton, do we know whether anecdotally or somehow, do they have a problem with subs? And my concern is that if it is truly pay is the issue, then addressing the pay addresses the issue. But if it's not, it's just upping the rate, and we're still gonna have the core problem that we're trying to address. And so the reason I picked Brunswick and North Royalton is, Brunswick loyalty rate's $135. If there's Brecksville, my bad, wrong BR. If they're still having problems, then that could be that the rate isn't the issue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is a great answer, but when I met with the other HR, directors, and we kind of talked, this was like maybe in the fall, later in the fall, we all said, well, my rate's this and my rate's that, and we all said, we're still searching for subs. Like, it's not really helping at this point. So that's why I didn't come right away with a recommendation. I'm like, if we up our rate, it's not gonna make a difference. We're still gonna be fighting for the same people. But then, as other places outside of schools started raising their rates and trying to attract people, then then I think it became a little bit more noticeable. I think there is, a sense of, we are all trying to get the same people, but when people come to Strongsville, we get a lot of people that live in the community, are closer to the community, and once they start, years ago, I did the research of why a sub would want to sub in your district, and it's really not about, will I make $5 more or $10 more? It really has to do more with, are the lesson plans there for me? Do I feel comfortable? Do I feel supported? And so we've done a lot of training with our principals and teachers over the years to make sure that happens. Do the kids know the rules and the procedures? How much of a hard time am I going to have, and how can I get in here? And so, I don't know that a $5, $10 here and there is going to make a huge difference, but toward the end of this year, that's what we were hearing. We were hearing, listen, Strongsville's way too low. I really want to sub for you guys. I've subbed here for years, but I can't make $90 when I can go somewhere else and make $110, or $120. So, I think this is fair to start with, and you see where we go.
And I think in addition to that, the direct feedback, because we've heard grumblings about our rate for a little bit, right? It's not like all of a sudden this year. But for that reason, we didn't change it, because we still were getting subs and we were filling the positions. Now, when we have loyal subs that are going elsewhere because that's a direct feedback piece of it. I think of all the comparables, I think most, if not all of them, utilize contract companies. So it is a different ballgame when you do it internally versus when you're utilizing a contract company, because, there's additional fees that are added on to that as well. So whether that has realized better fill rates, there's not a lot of people like us that do it internally. So I think that's a difference that's hard to flesh out.
I do know that there are people that have gone to other districts to be subs over Strongsville. I was part of one of the companies that they would bring in to sub in different districts that weren't Strongsville. And I've talked to people that have since then gone to different districts, and they've said, I love Strongsville, but I can go 10 minutes down the road and make this, 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 and this. Because I've asked, why do you always sub at Brecksville Broadview Heights Middle School? And they said, well, I'd love to be in Strongsville where I live, but just get in my car and I can make X amount more. So I do know that that is for a fact, a reason.
I've heard those anecdotal stories too, so there's enough of them that we're hearing them bubble up just in the community.
Yeah. And even through those companies that do bring in subs to other communities, those rates are higher too. From the company that I was with, looking at where we stand compared to some of those other neighboring cities around us, our number is definitely below those numbers.
The other follow-up question, do we get a better quality sub or a better something sub if we use the permanent subs? What I'm looking at is the delta between the daily sub of 31 and the permanent sub.
Yeah, typically our permanent subs have a teaching degree. We've used some of our retired teachers in that capacity as well that have, more experience with us. Some of them that have been with us for years are the permanent subs that we select. So we kind of go through that list. But even that, I know we had an allotment of 9 or 10, and sometimes I'm checking, how many do we have? We had 8, we only have 8, 2 left, so we were still struggling with that. So, but yeah, those are a little bit more, vetted and making sure that those are quality.
Maybe besides the dollar amount, for me, the question is the quality of the sub.
Yeah.
You have, again, this is all anecdotal, but, on the one hand, you have a sub whose job is to just be a placeholder and get through the day so that the assigned teacher returns tomorrow, right? Then you have the one that, we do have a considerable amount of substituting going on, in which point the quality of the sub is impactful to the students'
Sure.
academic performance. So, if there are choices for us to make that get us a better quality sub from an educational standpoint, that's what I think we need to grapple with, which is a long way of saying, does it make sense to expand permanent subs versus the daily and the loyalty of 31?
And I know we talked about this recently, Jenny. You were comfortable now, but has that changed?
No, I'm comfortable with the permanent subs, I think, have been so helpful. I guess I'm concerned about the subs that are leaving, that they don't want to be permanent subs. They don't want to have a commitment every 5 days a week, but they want to sub for us. And they do want to feel like, hey, I've been here for, 25 days, I'm still getting the regular, I can do 3 days a week. So I think that's where that kind of leans in terms of the loyalty.
If I can chime in
Mhm.
to maybe help with this, being a sub going in is very difficult your first day. It's very difficult your second day. It's very difficult your third day. Once you get a repertoire with those students, whether it's you knowing that building, knowing where their specials are, if you have to walk that kindergarten class to music and you know where it is, you kind of get a little bit more credibility on the mean streets of kindergarten when you actually know what you're doing and you're not asking the kids like, hey, how do I get there? What do I do? So if you have some sort of sense of being an adult, being a leader, not that kids don't respect adults, but it's like wrangling kittens at some point. And once you're familiar with a building and you're familiar with the school, you're familiar with the staff, you know who you can lean on and ask questions to, you're familiar with the lesson plans. These teachers, or these subs, when they go in there, they have to pretty much, they can't go in their hours early, they can't go in their days early. They get the lesson plan overnight on the internet, or they go in there and they're, okay, where's this? How do I turn on the overhead projector? How do I do that kind of stuff? So I think by having that loyalty program with those subs is so important, because once they're familiar with the administration, they're familiar with the other teachers there, who they can rely on, who can help them. I think that would build the quality of subs, because I think a lot of subs are very good quality subs, but they're kind of just thrown to the wolves in terms of, I'm brand new here and I don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm doing this. I can't read the writing on this lesson plan. I don't know the password to get into the computer. So I think you don't just pick up people off the street to be subs. There is qualification that you have to have. I think the quality of the subs would improve because they'd be more comfortable with the atmosphere of where they are, as opposed to just kind of learning it themselves that day.
Yeah. And I think the shadowing program that we started, when we started it when COVID first hit, because there were so many things with computers and things that they had to understand and the rules of all of that. I think they've appreciated that piece and being able to even sub at different levels. What level are you most comfortable with? With the substitute flexibility, I think, having the ability to form relationships with kids and not coming in as it's really kind of the attitude that comes in to kind of understand a little bit what's going on and how things go. And like you said, Haley, to have people to support you to kind of get to know the lay of the land so you feel comfortable is key. And sometimes, that's somebody that has a degree, and sometimes, it's somebody like our soccer coach that can come in and kind of know the kids and sub for us. So
Subbing is not for the faint of heart.
No.
At all.
It's a challenge.
Think, from what I've seen, especially what I've witnessed being a sub, you don't generally have people being there just to be placeholders.
Mm-hmm.
You have to really like what you're doing, and you have to, it's hard. It's not your lesson plan, it's not your classroom, you may not even be proficient in math, but you're in high school geometry for 5 days. Not speaking from experience, but.
Any other feedback or suggestions?
Well, the only other one I want to think through is is setting it to the percentage and letting it run.
Okay.
I think there's something to be said for revisiting it. So bring it, unless there's disagreement, let's bring it forward, but I want to think through that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for the discussion. Moving on to curriculum, we have 2 items for your consideration, both overnight trips. The first is for the high school boys varsity and JV basketball team camp. Be resolved upon my recommendation that permission be granted to the Strongsville High School boys varsity and JV basketball teams to attend Eastern Ohio basketball camp in Sherrodville, Ohio, June 12th to the 14th. Transportation will be via school bus and expenses will be paid by participating students. The second overnight trip is for our hockey team. Be it resolved upon my recommendation that permission be granted to the Strongsville High School varsity hockey team to attend a school hockey summer camp June 24th to the 26th at Bowling Green State University. We will have one change here, Mr. Micko. Transportation will be provided via the school bus instead of the parents, so it'll be via the school bus, and expenses will be paid by Strongsville Hockey Parent Association. Any questions on those trips? And then with that, I'll turn it over to Jenny for a few human resource items.
Okay, thank you. Under Human Resources, the following items are up for your consideration. Under C1, we have the resignation of a certificated staff member. And we also have under C2, appointments for certificated staff members.
Unless there's questions, that concludes my report.
Any questions? Next is our consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of the consent calendar at this point of the agenda means everything with an asterisk is adopted by one single motion unless requested otherwise. Do I have any otherwise? We do have the modification for B2 curriculum. Transportation will be provided by school bus and be paid for by the Strongsville Hockey Parent Association. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Ms. Stavcek. Any discussion? Take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Ms. Stavcek,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain,
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes, and the motion carries. Board policies, we have our second reading for a number of policies. We've received the policies for us to review. They'll be up for adoption at our next meeting after third reading. So if there are any questions or any consideration, we have plenty of time to get that ahead of the meeting. Board of Education other, do we have any others? We do have reason for executive session on the topics of?
To consider the employment, dismissal, discipline, demotion, or compensation of a public employee.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Ms. Stavcek. Any discussion? Take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Ms. Stavcek,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain,
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes, the motion carries. We will enter into executive session at 8:25. We have no expectation of further business. Thank you for your attention and have a nice evening.